Masculinity and mental health. How are they portrayed? And what possible effect does this have on the image of mental illness, and more specifically, men who suffer with mental illness? Through media, we are bombarded with images of the stereotypical strong and masculine man, as well as shows masquerading as representation for less stereotypically masculine men, but underneath lies a mocking for men not conforming to the expectations. Although there have been great films and portrayals of male characters showing emotion and experiencing mental illness, the film industry has come a long way. Are these characters actually damaging? No individual films will be criticised. Instead, we will be looking at the argument of how only 3 types of men with mental illness are portrayed. Dangerous or violent, found in horror films. Alone and weak, found in coming-of-age stories or in comedy side characters. Unrelatable genius, where mental illness is excused as part of the tortured artist or brilliant genius trope. First, the violent characters. PTSD is a mental illness widely associated with war and male soldiers. Although many films accurately portray PTSD, is it the most commonly shown mental illness featured in film because its masculine connotation of war makes it more acceptable to talk about? Although sufferers of PTSD aren't always violent, many of these characters are either violent themselves or the films are massively heavy on violent and gory imagery. PTSD isn't the only mental illness wrongly associated with violence. Personality disorders and addiction problems are also portrayed in films which lay on violence over violence, with dissociative identity disorder, multiple personality disorder, and schizophrenia becoming over and misused tools for horror and thriller writers. These all raise the questions: are all men with PTSD violent? Are all men with personality disorders dangerous and deceitful? The next stereotype, alone and weak. These characters are most commonly found in coming-of-age stories, or as the comic relief of a bigger story. Often emasculated and categorised as loners, these male characters go on a long journey to accept their problems and grow up, with their story always ending with them finding the perfect girl. This stereotype mainly explores the 2 most commonly diagnosed mental illnesses, anxiety and depression, and can lean heavily on suicide as a dramatic plot point. Are all male sufferers of depression weak and lacking love? And finally, the unrelatable genius, the tortured artist, where artistic brilliance and academic genius make the mental illness or apparent lack of masculinity acceptable. We must break these stereotypes and ideas of toxic masculinity in order to represent truly what it means to struggle with mental illness without the pressures of forced masculinity clouding the truth and shaping characters into strict roles. With suicide being the biggest killer of men under 45, perhaps we need to start looking at the representations to make mental illness less of a taboo, and more accessible for men to ask for help with mental health without the fear of being emasculated. Women are twice as likely to get diagnosed with depression, but 75% of suicides are men. What is so lethal about being a man with mental illness?